We need to talk about pistol rounds. They're terrible. Pistol rounds are terrible. I have an article lined up for why pistol rounds are terrible, and I'll link it in the description when it comes out. For now, it's stuck in editing hell, so who knows when that's going to come out. So in the meantime, because I want to get this out, I need to vent. I need to find a way to cope with this hatred I have. I just want to make a video about it, try to find meaning in my pain, and yeah. So here's what Counter-Strike is about. Any competition has what Aristotle calls a final cause. It has a purpose, in other words, which is to say that every value judgment is made in comparison to that final purpose, or relative to that final purpose. So if I say that the goal of Counter-Strike is to win a game, everything that is done in the game, every action in the game, is going to be called good or bad relative to that final cause, relative to whether or not it contributes or hinders your chance of winning the game, right? So you say a play is good because it helps you win, or it's the kind of thing that helps you win. Getting a kill gets you closer to your win condition, or one of the win conditions that you have in the game. So getting a kill is good, right? Making a kind of play has a positive expected value, and so it's good. I have an article about that as well. But all that to say that Counter-Strike has a final cause. It has and it's like any competition, it's a competition that rewards certain skills, which is to say that in order to achieve the end of winning, you have to be good in a specific way. You have certain skills that are rewarded. So certain skills are good skills. Whether or not you're a good carpenter, for example, is not a useful skill for Counter-Strike, probably. But you know what is? Good movement. Good movement is a good skill. Is a good skill for Counter-Strike. So relative to the final cause of Counter-Strike, good movement is valuable, right? And so you can say that when you try to identify the kinds of skills that Counter-Strike tests, you can then say that Counter-Strike is about testing those variables. That's why, if you look, let's just look at what kind of skills are the most important. You know, movement, game sense, strategy, economic management, aim. You know, these are core, probably the fundamental parts of your play. So your mechanics, your strategy, and your understanding. So your strategy involves your economic management, your tactics, and everything. Your understanding deals with what you know is possible for yourself and for the other players, and what you expect out of the other players, which will influence your decision making. And finally, your mechanics, right? Your movement, your aim, how fast you can jiggle peek, how good your crosshair placement is. Those are all mechanical skills. So you have mechanics, strategy, and understanding, and those are the three pillars. When you're talking about a gun round, the reason a gun round is so perfect is because, or so well respected, and when you win a gun round, that's the best kind of round you can win, or it's the best indication of how good you are, is because those are the kinds of rounds that tests all those skills the most. Those are the rounds that are the most important, because they test your movement, they test your strategy, and they test your understanding. They test your understanding because you have the most options available to you in a gun round than any other round. Because in a gun round, you have the maximum amount of economy, and given the fact that you have the maximum amount of economy, you can buy any gun you want. You can buy an AWP in most cases, you can buy a rifle, you can buy an SMG, you can buy a shotgun, you can buy any nades you want, or at least most of the nades you want, and so you have a ton of options for what's going on. But also, your opponent has a ton of options about what's going on. Your opponent has the same thing. It has the same diversity of weapons, same diversity of utility. And so there's just more and more options. That's the defining factor of a gun round. And given those options, you have more room for strategy, more room for understanding your game sense, because there are more options, there are more variables to take into account in your reasoning. And so the better you are at taking those variables into account, the better you will be at winning a gun round. And then your mechanics are also tested in the most important way, because there's more threats. An opera is more dangerous. A person peeking a rifle is more dangerous than peeking a P250, but also you're more dangerous, and so you're more rewarded for being able to line up a headshot, because that's going to be a one-shot headshot. You're more rewarded for having a spray, because your spray is 30 bullets instead of 12 if you're using a CZ. And so these are important facets of the game. These are the three pillars, and they're maximized in a gun round. Here's what's frustrating about a pistol round. A pistol round is the worst test of skill of any of these things, because they're the least possible options, because you only have $800. You have the least amount of understanding required, because people don't do that many strats, and even if they did try to make a bunch of strats, there would be way less opportunity to make strats, because you have way fewer tools available to you. You can't afford many grenades, you can't afford a rifle, you can't afford 2 AWPs, you don't have very many options. And so, and even in terms of aim, because of the way the Glock works, most of it's just running and gunning on the T side. And so you also, not only are you mechanically tested in a lesser way, because it's a little more random, which is why we always call it a crapshoot, because you're running and gunning and hoping for the best. But the USB player you're playing against you is tested in a slightly different way, because they have to consider angles that are that people are running past, and people hate that. But that's not necessarily a point against pistol rounds, but that's just different. So, but the point is, the mechanics are tested less because you're running and gunning, your understanding is tested less because there are fewer options, and your strategy is tested less because you don't have any options at all. And so, the pistol round is the least good round. It tests skills the least, and that's fine. It's okay. Like an anti-eco doesn't test very much skill either. In fact, you may say that an anti-eco round tests less than a pistol round. Maybe. That's possible. There's an argument for that. But when we're comparing the two main kinds of rounds, there's gun rounds and pistol rounds. And if you say, oh, well, what do you mean by main? Well, let me explain. Main means those rounds that give you the best reward. So the reward for winning an anti-eco round, if you're the one performing the anti-eco, and not if you're the anti-ecoer, as it were, if you're this kind of person, then the reward is just the single round. I mean, the person beating you, the person facing you is expecting to lose the round, and they're probably saving for the next round, maybe the next round after that. And so the reward for winning that round is maybe a round or something like that, and very little economic capital taken away from the other team. Meanwhile, winning a gun round can have significant impact, but it varies. You can win a round and have very little economic or minimal economic impact on the opponent if you win a gun round. You can, because let's say 3 of them save, or none of them save, but they have a ton of money and they can buy in the next 2 rounds after that. Or sometimes it can be 3 rounds. If you win your round, and then if you win a gun round on T side and the enemy team is completely broke, they might have to save for 2 rounds in a row. And so you have a massive advantage, so you're heavily rewarded. But it makes sense that you're heavily rewarded for winning a gun round, because a gun round is incredibly difficult to win. It's the biggest test, or the best test of competition in Counter-Strike, or the best test of skill in Counter-Strike. And so the best test of skill should have the best reward. That makes sense. The problem is that pistol rounds consistently have more impact on the game than gun rounds do, because even though in some situations gun rounds will have a bigger impact, in most cases they won't, because the only case in which a gun round will have more impact is if you break the enemy's economy and they need to save twice. Otherwise, you're scot-free because you have an incredibly high win percentage or conversion rate on second and third rounds on pistol rounds, and it's probably greater. The conversion rate's probably greater than anti-ecos otherwise. And so, when you're winning a pistol round, you have you have a high chance of winning 3 rounds. And in the best case scenario, you have the high chance of winning 3 rounds as a reward for winning a gun round. But in many cases, probably most cases, that isn't your reward. And so consistently, pistol rounds have a greater reward for winning in than gun rounds do. But why? We've already established that gun rounds are the best test of skill in Counter-Strike. They should offer the best reward for winning them because they're the hardest to win. And yet, they're not. Pistol rounds are consistently more impactful, which is why in any cast you listen to, people say, oh, they really had to win that pistol, or that's a really important pistol, maybe they can get back into the game, or, I know that this team won, but they also won both pistols. And somehow you use the fact that someone won 2 pistol rounds to discredit their victory. So North versus Hellraisers in the major qualifier, Hellraisers won that match in overtime, but Hellraisers also won both pistols, and they won 6 rounds off their pistols, and that would have never been 15-15 if they had lost one of those pistols. So in one sense, we say, oh, well, they did win the pistol round. Like, in some sense, it's a test of skill, so it must be worth something. But it feels so random. It's such a poor test of skill relative to the other tests of Counter-Strike that we don't feel like it's a test of skill. We feel like it's a crapshoot, and that it's sort of random who's going to win the pistol round, and that it can actually remove some legitimacy of the result. Because a win, and here's the crucial point, if Hellraisers had lost both pistol rounds and gone 15-15, we would respect them more than than we actually do in the case. So actually losing pistol rounds and obtaining the same result of getting 15-15 is worth more than winning them and getting 15-15. Why is that? Well, it's because it means that otherwise you would have had to win some gun rounds or some force buys or something. You would have to win a kind of round that we value more, that we think is a better test of skill. And so why is it that the pistol round is the round that rewards you the most consistently of any round, when we don't respect it at all, nor should we respect it? It's the worst test of skill of any round in Counter-Strike, or debatably, definitely worse than a pistol round, definitely worse than a force buy, and so definitely worse than a gun round, or definitely worse than a force buy. Sorry, and so it makes me question why we have them in the game at all. Why don't we have another system for starting rounds that's more fair, that is a greater test of skill, or that makes it so that the reward for a pistol round is less massive? And so you can get into the game, and maybe a pistol round is worth 1 round, and both teams can buy right off the bat afterwards, or something like that. Or maybe you just start with a gun round where everyone has, say, $5,000, and so you have a similar result where the person's economy is broken if they lose, but you're actually testing their skill. You're testing their skill in a gun round, and the game starts with a gun round. That would seem eminently more fair. It's incredibly strange to me that we insist on keeping this institution that we constantly disrespect, that we discredit teams for winning, and actually look down on teams that have great results if they have, say, an 80% win on pistol rounds, because we don't think it's sustainable. We don't think that they won it simply based on skill. We think that there's a lot of luck involved. But if someone won 80% of their gun rounds, we would say, maybe that's sustainable, but kudos to them. Winning 80% of your pistol rounds is, oh, you got lucky. And obviously you didn't get entirely lucky. You had, you probably earned the pistol round, but in one sense, it feels cheap relative to the other rounds that we have in the game. And so I think that we should really try to remove the convention that we have. We should really inspect the institution of the pistol round and question why it's there. What can we do to replace it? Should we replace it? And how can we do it better? How can we reward skill more and make our and increase the competitive integrity of our game? How can we make it even a better test of skill than it already is? All right, guys, that was my very intense and aggressive rant on pistol rounds. I have an article about this that goes into a bit more detail. It's a bit more technical than this was. This was less precise. My language was much less precise, way more impulsive. If you're interested in a more um, nuanced debate. If you want to debate with me, you can comment below and I can tell you how I feel, or you can wait until the article comes out and read that and tell me I'm shit then. But anyway, if you've watched this far, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe another video like this will come out as I struggle to get published. But generally speaking, I just wanted to get my thoughts out while I'm waiting for the thing to get published. So, cheers. I hope you had a lovely day. And I don't, I follow me on Twitter. Check out Writer's Block. Yeah, bye.